Welcome into the D2 Baseball Podcast. I'm Robert Fry, and today we have on a special guest, someone who is now leaving the Lone Star and joining the MIAA at Northeastern State. Kyle Williams. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Robert. How's everything going?
It's going great, and now especially get to learn a little bit more about you and the plans with the Northeastern State program. So we'll start there. Give a little bit about your background and kind of like the process of you becoming the Northeastern State head coach.
Yeah, so started out coaching at the junior college level up at Crowder College up in Neosho, Missouri. Was there for 6 years, went down to Cameron as the assistant for 1 year, and then took over as the head coach there. Was there for 7 years, and then the AD at NSU now. John Sizemore was actually the softball coach and AD at Crowder whenever I was there. So when the opportunity came about, he had reached out a couple years ago, and my wife was pregnant with our second kid. Just not a great time. She was still the women's golf coach at Cameron at the time too, so not a great time to pick up and move at that point. But this time it lined up better to where we had the opportunity to come up here and get a little bit closer to the places where I started coaching and my connections and all that stuff.
And so, Coach, kind of talk a little bit about that connection, one, and then two, just the opportunity to be excited about this program at Northeastern State.
Yeah, so you mean the connection with Coach Sizemore?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he came in. He was the softball coach my second year as an assistant at Crowder, and then the year after that he took over as the AD as well as the softball coach there at Crowder. He was the one that kind of spearheaded the fundraising stuff for the new indoor that they built up there and a lot of facility renovations and kind of catching Crowder up with the times a little bit. Did a really good job there, and just being able to get close with him and pick his brain as a guy who was obviously still coaching while also in the AD role. And then he came over here, and it's a lot of the same struggles that Crowder faced whenever he first showed up, and low budget, state school. Got to get out there and work for everything that you have. And so this is the beginning of year 4 for him, and he hit the ground running where he left off at Crowder, and starting to make facility improvements, both at the football stadium, baseball field, softball locker room, soccer locker room, all that different kind of stuff. So really good guy to work for. Was a phenomenal coach himself, and feel like he's one of the types of administrators that kind of understands what people go through at smaller level, D2 schools and the struggles that we have. And he's very aware of that stuff and is very helpful in helping us overcome those obstacles, So in terms of the excitement for the program, it's just awesome to get, like I said, a little bit closer to where a lot of my connections have been throughout my coaching career. Being down in Lawton for the last 7 years, it was a little tough to get back to the recruiting pipeline of Northwest Arkansas, where had spent a lot of time when I was at Crowder, and Southwest Missouri, obviously the Tulsa area, really good baseball up here. Knew a lot of people from all those places, but it was just kind of hard to get guys down there, just from a pure logistical standpoint of you got to pass a lot of good schools to get all the way out there. So I'm excited to get back to that area, and then obviously not that long ago, NSU was in a really good spot to compete at a national scene. When Jake and James and those guys were here, 5, 6, 7 years ago, they really had it rocking and rolling. And it's just a really baseball rich area. If you look at the Tulsa Metro and Northwest Arkansas, Southwest Missouri, Southeast Kansas, you draw a 3-hour circle around the town of Tahlequah, and you're gonna catch a lot of good both high school baseball and junior college baseball. So exciting to be up here and be in a cool small knit community that's very much a college town, and be able to let those kids stay close to home.
And you kind of touched on a little bit about those recruiting areas, but kind of expand on it in terms of once you got hired, what was that process like of trying to fill out your roster, given that, you're behind the eight ball a little bit once your official announced date was June 6th.
Yeah. So obviously, like you said, June 6th announced. We had when I took over, we had 14 or 13 returners on the roster, 14 returners on the roster. So obviously, had a lot of work to do, and had one coach coming back from last year, Logan Rutledge, and then Cole White, my assistant now, who played here and then played at Missouri Southern last year. Those two guys, putting them a little bit through the ringer in terms of campus visits and stuff like that. I think after I got hired that next Monday, I came up and I was here for 3 days and we had like 18 visits in 72 hours. So thank God for those guys and that they had a good feel for the campus life and everything. Cause I mean, I was taking notes when they were showing recruits around campus. Cause obviously they were both student athletes here, had a good feel for it. And on the interview, they showed me the event center, the football field, the training room, and the baseball facility. And so I'm like, seeing the student union for the first time and the cafeteria and all that different stuff. So, it was very much a very stringent, hectic time to go out, and we ended up signing 37 new guys in right around 5 weeks. So it was very hot and heavy there, but those guys were put through the ringer and kind of indoctrinated by fire there. For a little bit, and then you get done and you're like, man, that was crazy. I'm ready to coach some baseball, but then you got to start on 26s. So we haven't really seen the pace slow down at all. In terms of the recruiting process, which for all the bad parts of the transfer portal, it's nice to be able to go sign good talent when you take over. Early June. So being able to get out there and start to plant our flag in the northeast corner of the state and say, this is a place where you can come and be a good baseball player, play a high level of baseball, as well as, enjoy your time. So it was pretty hectic, but we got it done. And, I like the group, especially for, only having 5 weeks to put together. We've got a good talent base, and now it's just all about, bringing them together as a group and teach them how we want them to do things. We've got our first day of team practice today with live at bats and everything. So I'm excited to see what we've got. So,
and kind of talk a little bit about the coaching staff on your end. How does that impact you in terms of like staff synergy, where it's less of like, hey, we're gonna do things slow. It's, hey, we got to hit the ground running.
Yeah, well, so Cole White, he played under James the year before he went over to Queens with Jake, and so he had a good feel for what it looked like then, and they had a really solid team. And then he was here for the first year under Coach Galloway, and so he decided to finish up his career at Missouri Southern last year. So obviously, has seen multiple high level programs. Played at Fort Scott when he was in high school. He's a Broken Arrow guy originally. So, he's a guy who has seen it and knows what it looks like. So, asking him to work was never an issue. Same thing with Coach Rutledge. He was here last year. The majority of the year they had 2 coaches on staff. So he was technically in a GA role, but he was very much not a GA in terms of his workload and the things that he had to go do. So same thing with him. He it was what time do I need to be there, and we'll get to it. And I'm sure they got to a point to where they wish they would have just recorded what they said when they were getting shown around campus and saying the same thing for the 17th time in a week, but they were really good about it. And then my two other coaches on staff currently, they both got here right before the beginning of the school year. Matt Schilling, who was a Fort Smith guy for the last 3 years. He's in here working with our infielders and our hitters. And then Adam Scoggins, who pitched for me at Crowder, and then pitched at ORU and the Dodgers organization for a little bit. And so those are both guys that I had previous relationships with who, Schilling was a Cali County guy, and then Carl Albert, and then Fort Smith, and then obviously Scoggins playing at ORU, and then at the professional level, they kind of understand what the what the level kind of needs to look like and the work ethic that it takes to go have a good program. And so it's been nothing but good things as far as the coaching staff goes. And there's no need to ask them to work hard. They show up ready to work and ready to get after it. They're all excited to be in the situation to where they get to obviously impact the game. A bunch of young guys who just got done playing don't have to go out into the real world and get real jobs. So that's always a fun time of life where their whole life is baseball currently. So they enjoy it and they work their tails off. And excited for the staff. And then we have Coach Cotton I, who's our mentorship coach, who's been around baseball for longer than any of us have been in the earth, So he's a guy who comes around and brings some really good energy and a lot of phenomenal stories being in baseball for almost 55 years now, I think. So he's a gem, and we're lucky to have him as well. So,
and speaking of working your tail off, in your experience, you've had to basically maximize the limited amount of resources. So, now at Northeastern State, how do you plan to leverage the available resources at Northeastern State, to build a successful program?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to just the location and the fact that, we have so much good baseball in the area. And with the way that, college baseball has been trending the last couple of years, it's not necessarily a commonplace thing to find a program that guys enjoy being a part of, and enjoy showing up to the field every day and working hard to make that program as good as it can be, So excited to really, plant our flag and have the ability to say, we're an hour 15 minutes from the center of Tulsa. So, those guys, whether they go play junior college baseball, whether they're looking for the 4-year level out of high school, whether they go to the D1 level and it doesn't work out there, in order to get those types of players, we got to let them know that, it's not a thing where you have to go to NSU anymore. We want guys that we want to build it to where guys get to go to NSU and they're excited about being here, regardless of their previous stop, whether they're, like I said, a high school guy, a JUCO guy, another 4-year transfer, where it's a place where they can come in and feel like they improve as a baseball player, improve as a person, get their degree, and really show up to the field and enjoy the process of being a team and working their tails off, and getting after it. So.
And you kind of mentioned it, being the best on the field and off the field. Part of your success too has been increasing team GPA. Kind of what's your kind of thought philosophy behind that in terms of, not only taking care of things on the field, but also taking care of things off the field?
Yeah, a lot of it comes back to the recruiting process, and we're out there, we're looking for guys that want to be the best in every area of life, So every guy that you recruit is going to tell you that he's going to work hard in the weight room, that he's going to work hard on the field. But we want guys that make our brand something that we're proud of, and we want people to see the Riverhawk logo in the community and go, oh man, he plays baseball, that's awesome, rather than those baseball players. And some programs in the past that I've seen have had kind of that reputation in town where it's like, don't let the baseball players get involved, and it kind of gets a little dicey. So really recruiting a high level individual that at the end of the day, at some point, somebody's going to tell these guys that they're done playing baseball, whether that's at the end of their college career, whether that's after a 15-year big league career, whatever it may be. So we want to set those guys up for success and put a structure around them to where, they know that away from the baseball field is where we're really made as people. And just because we're all part of the baseball program does not mean that's who we are as individuals. So we're going to be people that excel in all areas of being a student athlete on the field, off the field, in the community. And it starts in the recruiting process of finding guys that are bought into that type of mindset,
And so you mentioned our brand, and so I want to get your thoughts as what do you envision the Northeastern State brand to be, and two, how do you plan to implement it?
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of comes down to the same stuff that we've talked about. We're gonna show up. We're gonna work. We hold our guys to a high standard, and we expect them to hold each other to a high standard as well. And it just comes down to a day-to-day reminder of what the standard is, and not letting, whether it be a coach, whether it be myself, whether it be a freshman who's only been on campus for 3 weeks, like everybody has the same standard that they uphold, and it's trying to be the best that you can be in every area of life. So, if there's guys that aren't upholding that standard, it's just about, keeping them on track and reminding them that, hey, this is all stuff that we agreed on. We do individual goal meetings with every guy on roster where, they get to pick their goals. We don't tell them what their goals should be. We might shift them a little bit and reword them a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's their ideas on the paper and it's hanging in their locker. And so every day, obviously you show up to school in the first 2 weeks, it's all exciting and fun and everybody's ready to go. And then you got your first day inter squads today and everybody's amped up. But at the end of September, early October, everybody's, it gets monotonous. The same thing day after day, same pitchers, same hitters. We only have two outside competition games scheduled this fall, so there's no real break in the monotony. And so, in order to go turn in a really good entire fall semester of 16 weeks, we gotta remember what the end goal is. And so, we let them set the goals to where it's their ideas that they put down there. It's not them saying, well, I need to gain 15 pounds because coach told me I need to gain 15 pounds. Like, it's what they want to do. And so keeping that at the forefront to where, you get into early October and you show up to the field and you're like, man, I threw my 3 innings yesterday. Today's just a recovery day. I'm just going to, limp through my exercises for recovery on the pitching side of things. And then go sit there and watch everybody else compete, and you see your goals and it reminds you like, hey, I need to lock in for the next 35, 40 minutes and really go attack this day and attack my plan. And then when I get done with that, then I can relax and have fun and chirp my teammates or whatever it may be.
So then on that end, the idea of like hitting and offense, with your experience in the Lone Star, there was plenty of offense there, but now you're going into a similar type of offense in the MIAA. Talk a little bit about kind of what your strategies are in terms of offense, especially now going to a different league, and two, kind of like, what do you envision what this offense could be?
Yeah, so we're, I'm very much a guy who thinks that OPS is king. We want guys that can hit the ball hard, hit the ball in the air, and can control the strike zone. So we want to make pitchers work for their outs, and when they make a mistake, we want to hit it hard. So that's we had some success with that down at Cameron. Had a lot of success with it when I was at Crowder. It goes back to recruiting a certain type of athlete that is good at that. But two, the environment that we create every day is based around that, so, obviously with wind directions in the Midwest and what we face kind of down in the Lone Star, and when you get out into West Texas and New Mexico and all that stuff, there's days where you show up and the flag's pointing straight in at 40 miles an hour, and it don't matter how hard you hit it in the air, it's not going to go anywhere. And so, we're going to do our best to be a well-rounded team and be able to play baseball in those situations and move runners up and things like that. But at the end of the day, in a perfect world, we're able to have some slug and throughout the lineup, top to bottom, as well as controlling the strike zone and not giving away at bats. Pitchers, the high level pitchers at this level, they're good enough without you chasing pitches out of the strike zone. So if we can control the strike zone and make them come into the zone to beat us, and then when they come in the zone, make it hurt when we do hit it, then that's the perfect strategy in terms of what we're looking for. So,
and on that other side too, with your experience of working with catching, especially at Crowder, what's something that maybe the general population or general public doesn't think of in terms of catcher development?
I think a lot of it comes down to their side work. You know, we had a stretch when I was at Crowder where I'm pretty sure it was every year for 4 years. We had a guy who was a redshirt the year before work his way into the starting lineup the next year solely because they took catching bullpens and their daily work really, really serious, you know, and a lot of people, I feel like see the catching position and view it as being really difficult to develop because, you know, good catching is very hard to find. Typically guys that can really catch and throw as well as hit, they aren't necessarily at this level, you know. So the ability to develop guys and make them understand that, hey, you know, catching bullpen sucks. You know, it's long days, and you don't necessarily want to show up and you know, be in a squat for 13 pins straight of 35 guys each. But that's a lot of reps that if you're taking advantage of those, then it's going to help you in the long run. And then obviously, you know, with pitching machines now, you know, when I started coaching, the hack attack wasn't really a thing. So it was like Atex and bullpens with me trying to create something from, you know, 35 feet, which not much arm strength in the Williams family. So a little bit difficult on that side of things. But as long as, you know, if guys show up and work and we have a plan set out to where, you know, if they show up and work and put in the reps every single day and take those reps seriously with intent, then it's very difficult to not see the improvements from that. So Coach Rutledge actually works with our catchers now, and he does a really, really good job in terms of showing them the importance of like, hey, dude, like this is where you learn your pitchers. So, you know, obviously when you get here in the fall, you know, the catching side of things is a little bit dicey just because they haven't seen, you know, we got 21 guys on staff. And so the returners kind of know the returners, but then outside of that, it's like nobody knows what each pitch does. And so you got to really learn the pitcher and understand what you're looking for. Tendencies guys have, pitch shapes, pitch profiles, all that different kind of stuff. But all that side work kind of leads into you being a good catcher when there's an umpire behind you and he says play ball.
And within that too, with your experience, you know, coaching in the Lone Star, now you get an opportunity to coach in the MIAA. You know, what excites you about being able to compete and, you know, leaving one conference for another top conference in Division II baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, everybody does this profession, you know, in order to try to be the best. And if you want to be the best, then you might as well play the best in your conference, you know. So, you know, it's not necessarily always the most fun thing to line up across from the Angelos and the Tylers and the Lubbocks of the world. And you know, all I did was trade them out for the UCMs and the Pitt States, and you know, Fort Hayes with a really good year last year, the UCOs. But you know, we want to go strap it up and see where we line up with those guys, you know. And so iron sharpens iron, and so if we can go prove that we can compete with them in the regular season, then by the time you get to playoff baseball, you just, you know, you have the confidence of, hey, we can hang with these guys. And just because, you know, whatever the front of their jersey says doesn't actually matter once the umpire says play ball. And we just got to go play our game and go attack the process of playing good baseball rather than worrying about who's in the other dugout. So being able to see high quality teams across the field from you more consistently just helps when you get to that level. So.
And a little bit about your educational background. You know, you have a master's in educational counseling psychology with an emphasis in positive coaching. Talk a little bit about that and how it's influenced your coaching style.
Yeah, so really cool program that the University of Missouri started back when I was the assistant at Crowder and had just finished up my bachelor's degree. And they built that master's program specifically for coaches who were trying to get their master's, because at that time you couldn't really be a head coach at the NCAA level without a master's degree. And so it was basically a program built around the psychological side of coaching, with some, you know, event management classes and things like that sprinkled in. So really forced me to kind of dive deep into to what it was that I wanted to be as a coach, the type of coach that I wanted to be, the type of person that I wanted to be, and all that different sides of things. And then they kind of just turned it into a college degree. So it was one of those things where it was really cool to be able to attend a class where you were actually interested in the stuff being taught, rather than going and trying to get an MBA or something different like that. So, and it was also, obviously the junior college level has a certain mantra and certain, people believe certain things about junior college baseball. And so being able to go through those classes while being at that level, and seeing, kind of both sides of it. So, a lot of the new psychology stuff is, you got to build people up from where they're at. You don't have to break them down to build them back up. And a lot of the old school JUCO stuff was like, hey, we're going to break you down to, tear down the building to the studs and rebuild you with the mentality that we want. And so being able to kind of mesh those two styles together, is something that is obviously probably the hardest part about this profession. And, the game is played, it's ruled by confidence. And so being able to coach a game where a lot of what you do on a baseball field ends up being failure, but understanding that, through that failure, we can make ourselves better and get guys to really buy into that and be a confident baseball player, even though you might be one for your last 18. Like, you still got to walk up to the plate and know that that's the at-bat that it all turns around. And that's probably the hardest part of this game, and the hardest part of coaching college baseball now with guys who, the kids that are getting to us now, they didn't grow up without perfect game and without PBR and rank. I mean, they start ranking them at 8 now, and so all the guys that we're coaching now, they've all been ranked for their entire life. And so there's a lot of times where guys get beat down by this game. And so being able to teach them how to handle that failure and to handle that beat down and still show up and have the ability to believe that today is the day that it turns. And on the flip side, when it's going well, to continue to prepare like it's not going to go well so that you can keep that success going. That's a very challenging part of this profession. And I think my schooling helped a little bit in that, although, it's always a constant battle. So, on top of that, going from JUCO assistant to D2 head coach in under 10 months was a little bit of a whirlwind, so, just constantly trying to strive to get better, and teaching our guys that that's what we're trying to do as well. So.
And so, speaking of consistently trying to strive to get better, use this time to kind of talk to the Northeastern State fans, the community, outside perspectives. What should we expect from Northeastern State baseball in the 2026 season?
Yeah, I think it's just, a team that's going to really lay the groundwork for what our program's going to be going forward. And, we talk about it consistently with this group, and it's like, hey, you guys have a very big job in building this program back up to where it used to be. And they're going to lay the groundwork. And so obviously a lot is entrusted to them in terms of the standard and the way that we're going to go about things and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when you show up to Rousey this spring, you're going to see a team that plays really hard, a team that cares a lot, a team full of good teammates that are all pulling on the same end of the rope, and that's the things that, that's our daily talking points, and is, being able to build up individuals to be higher level baseball players, and then taking that group of individuals and teaching them how to play team baseball, and put the team first. Because obviously, you can be the best player on a 12-win team and it's not that much fun, but if you can be the best player on a 35-win team, that's pretty sweet. So, being able to get the group to mesh and come together to where you're just as worried about your teammates' success as you are yourselves. That's something that we're trying to strive for and trying to lay the groundwork for, to where, when our freshmen this year, we've only got 2 freshmen, obviously, taking over late and getting into the recruiting cycle late. But in 4 years, when those guys are seniors, hopefully it's a thing where that's the expectation to come in. And so that's what this group is tasked with. and they've been doing a good job so far. So we're gonna do what we can to keep them rolling downhill and get the momentum going to where this spring, we can show up, we can play hard, we can play with enjoyment, and have a lot of happiness while we're on the field. And at the end of the day, all of our days are numbered in terms of being on the baseball field. And so being able to enjoy every day while playing a high level of baseball with a high standard is kind of the goal. And that's what we're looking to put forward. And, the wins and losses will fall where they need to, but as long as we show up with a good process, I feel like we have the talent base to go put together a good year.
And Coach, the final question I have for you is, within everything you've mentioned, use this time to say, who are some people, mentors, people in your life that helped impact you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, probably first and foremost, my dad. He kind of fostered the love for the game of baseball. He wasn't a baseball player when he grew up, and somehow I got the bug when I was little, and he did a really, really great job as a father to help me, get to where I am today, to where, obviously it's baseball, baseball and family. And that's pretty much what life consists of at this point. So him, my wife, met her when I was down in Lawton. She was a women's golf coach. So unfortunately, I'm not the best coach in my family. But she got out of the profession so she could spend more time with our little ones. We got a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. And so she wanted to spend more time with them. So got out of the profession. And, but her ability to keep me grounded and make it work. Obviously when we have the long hours and the weekends and all that kind of stuff, has really helped me. And then, probably the other one is Travis Lallemand over at Crowder. Being able to play for him and then coach under him for 6 years, he instilled the work ethic where, obviously taking over a program with limited resources, coming from a program with limited resources. When I was at Crowder, it wasn't what it is today with the giant indoor and all that kind of good stuff, so really teaching me how to work in the process and what it takes to be successful is something that, has carried me to this point. And, I feel pretty old most days, but at the end of the day, I've got 7 years of head coaching experience, or 6 years of head coaching experience at the age of 34. And I wouldn't have been set up to be put in that position without him, and without his kind of mentorship and guidance and molding me as a young coach. And so, those are probably the three biggest ones, although the list, we could be on here until about 10 o'clock tonight if I thanked everybody that made an impact with me. But those are probably the three big ones. And then obviously with this stop now, Coach Sizemore having the belief in me to bring me in, and trust the program with me to turn it around. Those are hopefully I can reciprocate that belief and make him look smart rather than the alternative. So,
Coach, Coach Williams, really appreciate you taking out the time to chat with us and talk about the Northeastern State program, learn a little bit about yourself. And, we wish you nothing but the best of luck here coming up in the 2026 season.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And the coverage for Division II baseball is that you guys put together is second to none. And it's exciting to watch it continue to grow and get more eyes on our sport. So appreciate everything that you guys do with the rankings and the weekly recaps. Obviously these interviews with all the other new coaches at new spots and that kind of stuff. It's exciting times to be at the D2 level, and you guys are a big part of continuing to draw eyeballs to the level that we're at. So,
and that is head coach Kyle Williams at Northeastern State. We'd like to give a big thank you to all of our regional tier Patreon members. We couldn't make it to the 9th inning without the support of all of you. You're the real MVPs, hitting a home run for the team every single time. Thank you.